I was making jewelry and just kind of making enough money to get by. And it was on that trip, I read a quote. And the quote was, with increased privilege comes increased responsibility.
Hey, my name is Felix T. I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how you can use Amazon reviews to create a superior product, what's the best use of your time when preparing for a crowdfunding campaign, and how to balance marketing your cause versus marketing your product. Today, I'm joined by Emma Cohen from FinalStraw's. FinalStraw's is the world's first collapsible, reusable straw and had annual revenues in 2018 of $5 million and was started in 2018 and based out of Santa Barbara, California. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Felix.
Yeah, excited to have you on. So take us on this trip that you took to Thailand and what you discovered when you were there.
Yeah, so I was in Thailand and there for a few months. And I was on these beautiful, amazing remote beaches and would walk down and it was crazy because I couldn't take more than a couple steps without picking up a plastic straw. So I created this routine, and every morning I would go out and I would walk the beach and I would collect straws. And by the end of my trip, I just had, handfuls upon handfuls of straws. And it just really hit me there that, they don't have the waste management infrastructure to deal with this pollution. And then, if the straws are ending up in the beaches, they're then traveling out to the oceans where they are breaking down into microplastics and getting consumed by the fish, which bioaccumulates up the food chain and into us. So it was kind of this really hard hitting time in my life where I saw the direct impact of plastic pollution and how it's affecting our ecosystem. And that was really when I swore off plastic straws.
Right. So you obviously were impacted by this. You saw the impact on the world and, of course, also on your immediate life. And you wanted to make changes here. So what made you take that step towards just seeing this problem for yourself and actually trying to build some kind of organization, some kind of business around solving this problem?
Totally. So that trip was a super formative trip for me. Before I went, I was, kind of just not really applying myself the way I generally do. I was making jewelry and just kind of making enough money to get by. And it was on that trip, I read a quote. And the quote was, with increased privilege comes increased responsibility. And so the combination of reading that quote and then seeing the devastating effects of plastic pollution, I immediately went home and completely changed my life. So I moved back in with my parents and started applying to grad school and got a waitressing job and was just like, this is the turning point in my life where I need to do something different. So I got into Harvard and did my master's in environmental management and sustainability and got a job at Los Alamos National Laboratory in waste minimization and worked there for 5 years, and then was ready for something new and different and wasn't really sure what it was. And then the stars kind of just aligned and I ended up starting to work on this project and didn't have any clue where it was going to go, but just loved it. And it's really fun for me to be able to work on something where I can use my creativity and my voice. Because at the lab, like creating promotional material with memes is not necessarily encouraged. And yet that's how I communicate all of my messaging. Well, a lot of it for FinalStraw now. And so, yeah, I was just super fired up and excited to be working on something that I was really passionate about. And then launched in April of 2018, and it just kind of was a rocket ship that it exploded and really haven't looked back ever since.
Right. So it sounds like you were kind of struck by this passion idea you want to go after and just started taking steps and kept on walking on this path towards where you ended up today. Were there any points along the way though where you're like, I'm not sure that this is the right path for me? Like, did you ever have any doubts along the way?
Not while working on the straw project. Definitely not. It was just always really exciting and fun. And I was learning so much every single day. I never did any, business school training. And so to start a company is, business school on crack. You just kind of dive in and start making mistakes, and hopefully can surround yourself with people that can help direct you in the right way. But no, I've never felt like it wasn't the right path. I didn't have a ton of expectations going into it. I was like, I'm going to launch this project on Kickstarter, see what happens. And, if the world responds and they're into it, then I'll keep going. And if the world says, meh, not interested, then I'll find something else. But luckily enough, the world was very affirming and really said, this is needed. We need solutions out there. Waste is a design flaw. So it really was exciting and encouraging to find out that people were really interested in this type of item, and inspiring, because I've got a ton of other ideas that I want to work on.
I like that you mentioned about how if it wasn't going to work, you would just try something else. And this is not the first time where I've heard people basically saying that you want to be firm on your cause, but be flexible and adaptable on the solution that you're bringing to market to advance that cause. So it sounds like you had the same mentality going in. Obviously worked out, the first kind of shot they took at this. So speaking of that first shot, where did the Final Straw project come from? Like why was it at this point in your life? Because it sounds like you had many years already involved in the kind of space. Like why was it at this point in your life where this project came into being and you decided to pursue it?
Yeah. So, I was basically coming to my 5-year mark at the lab and just wasn't feeling like I could express myself creatively. And I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do long term. So I was looking for other things to do. And I met my former co-founder, and we just started talking about this idea. And the timing was just incredible, because I was like, well, I've been saving up money. I'd like to quit my job. And so I did. I quit. And I moved up to Whistler, British Columbia, and was skiing and had the time to spend on this project. So it really was all about timing. And that, I relate most of our success to the timing and the fact that the world was really ready for this idea. Because if we had launched even 6 months earlier, I think that it would have been crickets. People just weren't focusing on single-use plastic the way that they are now, and especially the straw, which became this kind of gateway plastic and this beacon for an item that is incredibly low-hanging fruit and something that's really easy to remove from your daily life.
So timing, was it luck, or did you see that this wave was coming and you just wanted to work as fast as possible to catch up to it? Like, which one would you attribute it more to?
It was definitely both. I have Google News alerts for basically anything related to plastic. So I knew it was coming. I knew that Seattle was about to enact their straw ban. That came into effect in January of 2018. But what I didn't know is that Seattle was going to create a tidal wave of additional legislative bans, as well as corporate buy-in. So not only do you have crazy sweeping of plastic straw bans, you also have all of these enormous corporations like Starbucks, Disney, Alaska Airlines, Marriott, all electively removing single-use plastic straws. So it all happened at once. And I certainly was like, the Seattle straw ban is going to have an effect, but I could never have predicted that it would be this large.
So looking back, so you mentioned that you had Google alerts and you pay attention to legislation, but looking back, were there other things that you would pay attention to? Like for someone out there that is trying to see when is the right time, when is the right timing for, or maybe they're looking for a cause to get behind. They're trying to find out what is the thing that will kind of help them ride a wave. What were some things that you would say you probably could have seen or pay attention to? Like, what are some like green flags, I guess, that would have said that this was something that was going to become much, much more mainstream?
Well, as I said, the legislation that was going into effect, but then there was a huge gap in the market. So there was nothing out there, not a single item that was a portable, reusable straw. Now when you go on Amazon, there's telescoping straws, there's folding straws, there's, silicone, there's all of these different types. When we launched, the only types of reusable straws you could get were long, straight straws that were really difficult to carry with you. The bamboo ones, they make your drinks taste weird. The glass ones break. So I went through many glass straws in my purse that would just shatter. And then I would have this like jagged glass piece in my purse. And then the metal ones were equally as dangerous. Starbucks had to recall 1.8 million stainless steel straws due to mouth lacerations. So, and then additionally, there was no easy way to clean them. So you had these like big bulky items and no solution for people who want to take sustainability on the go. So it was this combination of there being nothing out there and what was happening with single-use plastic and the conversation. You had all of these celebrities getting involved and really elevating the conversation to the limelight. And so the combination of those two things, I would say, were the big flags.
So there's this groundswell of demand and conversation, but no real supply. There's nothing out there to help actually serve the demand for people out there that wanted to, like you mentioned, to have this kind of conservation, this kind of sustainability on the go. So how did you know what features were important to your particular solution? Like, where did it begin to decide, okay, these were the things that are, because like you mentioned, there are things already out in the market that sort of did it, but not to have the kind of features that you eventually employed in your product. So how did you know what you need to include in your solution?
Yeah, so that actually is it's really nice these days that you can actually figure out those answers pretty easily. You go on Amazon and you look at like what exists in the market, and then you look at reviews. So what do people like about the product, and what are the factors that they point out? And so going through each review and categorizing, okay, here's a point that they like. Here's exactly what it is that they liked about that, and really breaking it down, and then looking at the other side of it. What do they not like? How could I make it more convenient? What are they complaining about? And how often is that a complaint? Is it something that a lot of people are saying, or is it like a one-off sort of complaint? So the combination of looking at reviews and then also just talking to people, once we started working on prototypes, we'd show it to people, and everyone's first question is, how do you clean it? So we immediately knew that easy to clean was going to be the number one thing that had to be on there, and we had to include a cleaning device. Then beyond that, design. People love beautiful design. We all gravitate towards beautiful things. And so just, like Apple has created these products that people really go to, even though the function isn't necessarily better of an iPhone over a Droid. In fact, like the cameras on Droids are way better. We all have iPhones because they're beautiful, and easy to use. So that was another big thing. We have to make this something that's intuitive. We're already trying to teach people so much about, carrying a straw with them, which is a massive consumer behavior change. But what can we do to make it as simple as possible so there aren't a ton of questions?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so you probably could not address every single thing that you saw in your research. So how did you know what you should actually pay attention to, what you should build into your features in at least the very first couple versions, and what things you can kind of put in the back burner or maybe ignore altogether?
Yeah. So, I mean, when you're designing a product, you basically create kind of three buckets, the must-haves, the nice-to-haves, and the, kind of, it would be great if we could add this on, but it may not happen. So with the must-haves, it was really clear due to the frequency when I would read reviews, and also the frequency when I would talk to people of the questions they would ask. Easy to clean, easy to use, and beautiful design. Those were kind of the three top things that we looked at. And then from there, it was like, okay, and also, easy to carry. So that's why we had the keychain attachment with it. From there, you kind of start to filter down, because when you're designing a product, you can't include everything you want on it. Otherwise, it will be insanely expensive or huge. And, for us, portability was number one factor as well. So we really wanted to keep it very compact. So yeah, I think it really just has to do with the frequency that you're hearing these things. And when you look and scour reviews or talk to people, really pay attention to how often someone is asking a question, because that means that the rest of the world will probably be asking that question a lot as well.
Got it. So it's almost like looking at the frequency of these kind of comments, looking for the themes. And you mentioned that you have to say no at some point. You have to cut off the features at a certain point. Otherwise, you have this kind of creep, right, where you're constantly adding more and more things. You mentioned it's going to be expensive to get it to market if you're adding too many things. And also, it might just take you too long, right? You might have so many ideas, so many different things you want to put into it that will take you forever to get it to market. So can you recall what was like maybe the hardest decision you had to make on something to not do or to do when it came to the product design?
Yeah, totally. So, we had basically 6 months to take an idea and a prototype to making 100,000 straws for the Kickstarter backers that we'd sold them to. Mind you, we had no idea how to do this, like literally zero. So, to create a product in 6 months and deliver it in that time frame when all you have is a prototype is super challenging. So there was a lot of decisions that were made that were rushed. So what comes to mind when you ask that question, the first version of Final Straw had a drying rack and a cleaning squeegee. And I really didn't like this design. At one point we had a conversation, and I was like, this is an extra piece of plastic. It's over designed. I don't think people are going to use it. And it doesn't make sense for what we're really trying to accomplish, which is, using the minimal amount of materials to solve a problem. And so we had a whole team meeting and got together and said, well, we can either move forward with this drying rack design and deliver the majority of our product on time because we'd promised product by before holidays, or we can start from scratch and we will then not produce product until, I don't know, April or something of 2019. So the decision was ultimately made that more good would be done with creating the product with the drying rack, because going 4 more months of people not having a reusable straw is creating a ton of waste. I definitely don't regret moving forward with that decision. I think that it was the right thing to do to also test. Is the drying rack and cleaning squeegee effective? Is this something that people are going to like and want to use? Because, my opinion is definitely not always the right way to go. And just because I don't like something doesn't mean the customers won't. So, we really do try and test everything and put it out for vote and use kind of a small subset of customers to help us guide the direction of where the company is going.
So you mentioned something in there about how you had no idea actually how to create this thing beyond the initial prototypes. Talk about why you moved forward anyway with the crowdfunding and putting this out to the market, even though you couldn't see the entire path to get you to producing the product.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a risk taker. I'm an adventurist. I just kind of like to go for it. So that's been an interesting learning lesson too. Now, running a company, learning how to kind of temper the go for it, just dive right in sort of tendencies that I have with testing and making decisions carefully. So, I think the purpose of the crowdfunding was that we just had no idea if people were going to even like this product. When I would show it to my friends before we launched, they were like, cool idea. You quit your job for this. And so I think that not a single person ever said, wow, this is going to be a hit. You guys are going to, make millions. No one said that. And so crowdfunding was our way of dipping our toe in and seeing if this is something people even care about. And it turns out people really care about these kind of products. So, it was a really easy and, low budget way to do, some pretty big market validation.
Based on what you've seen or the entrepreneurs that you've met, which one do you think entrepreneurs need more of? This kind of dive right in mentality that you took on early on, or the more calculated approach that you seem to be trying to adopt more as your company is maturing?
I think it really depends on the product. In terms of like tech and stuff, I would say calculated, because you don't want to release an app and then have it not work and then lose your customer base because they're like, oh, I tried that, it didn't work. And then trying to get that customer back in is difficult. I think it really depends on what you're putting out there. But in general, I mean, because my approach is dive right in, I would say dive in. You know, we dove in and no one knew that this was going to do well, and it did. And so we got lucky in that respect. But there was a lot of calculated approach when it came to like creating a pre-campaign strategy, creating the marketing and the messaging, finding a really distinct brand voice. So though we basically put the idea out there with no idea how to kind of like take it the next steps, there was a lot of calculation done ahead of time on how to build the audience, how we wanted to communicate, how we want to come across to people. It's kind of was a bit of a balance of both.
So it sounds like you went heavy on the kind of marketing, the promotion, the branding, the audience building side, and then see if they want this product first before you invest any more time, energy, resources into trying to build it. Is that a correct kind of approach that you've taken?
Yeah, and I mean, additionally, we just didn't even have the time to really take the next steps. We both quit our jobs and worked for 3 months straight building this campaign, putting together all of the material, getting the prototype to a place that we were happy with it. So, had we had more time, I think we would have looked at more of the, setting up the manufacturer, getting a 3PL. But additionally, those things are super expensive, and we only had $30,000 to start this company. So there wasn't really additional budget to start, investigating these other kind of downstream things that needed to happen.
Okay, so let's talk about Kickstarter and the crowdfunding campaign. So you ultimately end up raising $1.8 million with over 38,000 backers. So huge success from this. Did you know that you guys wanted to go into the crowdfunding Kickstarter route to start with, or what caught your eye towards wanting to take that approach to launching the business?
Yeah, definitely. We started the project with the idea of going to Kickstarter, and to see how many people were interested. Kickstarter is a really amazing platform for being able to launch ideas, and they do drive their own organic traffic. So it seemed like a really good way to test and say, is this something people want?
How long did it take you to prepare to go from the decision to say, let's launch this on Kickstarter, to actually be able to push the campaign live?
So we started working kind of loosely on the project in October of 2017. And immediately we said, we're going Kickstarter. That was always the plan. But we didn't really start spending, the full-time hours until January of 2018. And then it was, both of us were working full-time for 3.5 months to bring the project to life.
What did you spend most of the time on during this preparation phase of Kickstarter?
So, getting the prototype ready. A lot of the prototype was made kind of handmade. We found someone to mock the case up in CAD, but the straw and the squeegee that we showed on Kickstarter were literally just made by hand. The straw was made using medical tubing. And so we had to test all these different types of tubing, find out which one, had the best elasticity, and then how to hold it on. We actually used orthodontist rubber bands to hold the tubing together. And then, I spent a ton of time on the messaging and the marketing and creating the brand voice. I love making memes, and I learned how to use Photoshop in college just because I liked making stupid, memes and different, random photos of my friends' faces, photoshopped on someone else's body. And so, I worked a lot on creating the social following and getting people interested in what we were doing and excited about the launch.
Got it. So when you look back on it, what was the best use of your time when it comes to launching on Kickstarter?
I mean, I think that that's a good question. The best use of our time was the video. I mean, the video was what people really remember. When I talk to people who they're like, "Oh, I remember that, the mermaid," right? That's how people remember us. They remember, the star of our video. And so we spent a ton of time writing that script and and working with the production team to get that exactly perfect. So much work in post production too, because I'm an insane perfectionist, and so there's just like all these tiny little things that probably 99.9% of the world would never notice. But I guess like to make that a little more of a general statement, I would say developing the brand voice. Who do you speak to? What kind of words do you use? How do you want to come off? Like, we are kind of sassy and fun and sparkly and not afraid to curse and get our point across in a bold way. And so that developing that brand voice, and then also as we bring more people on the team, ensuring that they understand that that's how we talk and that's how we like to create messaging, was probably the best use of my time.
Yeah, so the understand your customers, develop that brand voice, figuring out how to set up the messaging, like what is the messaging that you're gonna put out there. These are all what you consider the what you spend most of your time, and also where you found that was the best use of your time. So what do you actually do when you're trying to develop this? Like, is it just time spent like thinking and ruminating over this? Like, what is the exercises? What are the practices that you have to put into place to kind of discover the voice of the brand?
Luckily, our target customer is me. So I got to just really think about what I like and what I would want to see in the world. And, what I like seeing are companies that are fun, exciting, have interesting messaging, and are silly. So it was like basically creating something that I wanted to see in the world, which was really, really fun. In terms of how I come up with the ideas, I just go on super late night, down the Google rabbit hole and, looking at what others are saying, what other memes are out there. Any random weird idea, I just start Googling and seeing what else is out there. And is it something that I am coming up with that's completely original, or are there already things that exist that I can look at to inspire me? Certainly brainstorming is my favorite way to come up with these. Like when we're working on new scripts now, I'll work with someone else and we just kind of spend 2 hours on the phone, like throwing jokes back and forth and saying, is this funny? Is this stupid? Because I never know. I have like the sense of humor of a 14-year-old boy. So I'm like, is this funny to just me, or like, will other people laugh?
Yeah, you mentioned that this was an important thing for the Kickstarter campaign, but I think it's also important even without just in general, which was that you spent a lot of time trying to understand how your customers talk. So can you explain more about this? Like, where were you looking to figure out how they're talking? Because like you said, you are your target customer, but for someone out there that maybe doesn't feel that as closely tied to their brand, where do they go to do this kind of research?
Social media. So look at the comments that people leave. This is also where you can look at other brands. If you know that your target customer is buying, say, a Hydro Flask, for our purposes, Hydro Flask is a great example of a company that our customers are also buying from. What are they saying in the comments there? And really diving down into the exact language. Like for us, a big question was like, are we a collapsible straw or a foldable straw? So we kind of would put out both sets of those language and see what people resonated with. So doing a lot of A/B testing on, in ads and seeing, okay, which exact words are we going to use? Because you want to be mimicking the language that your customers use, because that resonates with them. That feels familiar, and they're going to feel, a deeper connection if you're using the words that they would actually use.
So you take the comments that are on your social media or on your on competitors or even other kind of like similar brands, social media profiles, like what the customers or what the audience is commenting on. How does that get used? Is it you mentioned in the ads? Like where else do you use the language of your customers?
Yeah, so we use it all over. We'll pull direct comments and use it for ads. Maybe it's a question that we see a few customers coming up with. So then we write a blog post on that. Um, we use what our customers are saying to inspire the direction that the brand is going, looking at future products. What colors do they want us to add? What nonprofits would they like to see us support? Ultimately, the brands that succeed have a dedicated customer base. This isn't just like, oh yeah, I use this item. It's like I go out and I tell my friends about this incredible thing that has added so much joy to my life, and we want to make sure that that's the kind of relationship we have with our customers. It's intimate. It's more than just a straw. It's a conversation starter. It's where people are able to really feel connected to this movement around single-use plastic, because ultimately, when you look at the news and read the headlines, it's really easy to feel like the problems are so big that we can't solve them. So we want our customers to feel empowered that though it is just a straw, it is one step. It is the perfect beginning step towards living a life using less, and then also sharing that message with your friends, coworkers, random person sitting next to you at the bar that says, "What's that?" when you pull out your final straw.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes to let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview. Makes sense. Okay, so you also said that images are important, things that you pay attention to, the photos out there. Is that the same strategy looking on social media, or where else can you determine what kind of content, visual content your customers want to see?
Yeah, totally. So, I look at the way that people post photos of their straws, and then we, will mimic similar photos in photo shoots. I look at color schemes. I look at, how do people set this up? Because a lot of times, like, someone will create a photo of a final straw, and I'll be like, that was a genius way to position that, and then we'll use it. That's the beauty of social media now. Everyone's putting this information out there for brands to learn from. In addition, I look at what other items are they carrying with their straw. So like, let's say, someone is posting a photo of their final straw with a Corksicle water bottle. Then I'm going on Corksicle. I'm looking at what colors they're doing. I'm looking at, their newsletters, really everything. I subscribe to way too many newsletters because I want to see what other companies are sending out, what kind of promotions they're doing. How often they're sending them. This is the kind of scrappy way when you've never started a company before to just learn from everything around you. This is my first company. So it's like, learning so much, making so many mistakes, and also just trying to surround myself with the people and the information to make the best company possible.
I like that you there's this kind of art and science, right, to brand building and marketing, but you've taken an approach of starting with the science first by seeing what's working first, and then maybe adding your own creativity, your own art to it, rather than just kind of going down this path and staying inside your own head and not seeing what's already successful out there. So you've taken an approach
Totally.
first of seeing what's successful. Start from that as your kind of foundation and build from there. Do you have any examples where this has led you down the wrong path?
I mean, I think that some of the times when I've implemented it the wrong way is by not thoroughly testing these things. For example, we just released our black straws, and so they come in two variations: a black straw with a black straw, and then so it's a black case with a black straw or a black case with a gold straw. I was certain that the black case with the gold straw was going to do a million times better. So we ordered way more of those. And yet, we released it and black on black is doing twice as good. So the mistakes that are made are because I'm not thoroughly testing it. And as soon as I start believing that my opinion will be the result without looking out. And the thing is, the other people, everyone else on the team thought the same thing, but we didn't test it. And so really everything, all of the answers are in the testing. And, entrepreneurs that aren't looking to test every variation and aren't willing to pivot, and maybe that are married to their idea over the what I would call the best idea, that's where you're going to see a lot of failure. And I've seen it in the past with companies that have come to me for advice, and I say, look, you gotta change your name. It'll never work with that name. And they don't test it. They just move forward with that name, and then it doesn't do well. And it's like, well, that's that you gotta put all of these things out there, and you have to be willing to pivot, because if you don't, you'll get, stuck in your own quicksand.
So there's nothing better than putting out there and seeing the results as like the true test. And, I think what you're getting is testing at a smaller scale before you place such a huge order. The other thing that you mentioned that you've done is that instead of spending a bunch of money on focus groups to find what people want, you just go and ask your audience. So like from things like the colors and as to kind of products that they might want to see you guys launch. Where does the conversation happen? Like, how do you open the door to having these conversations with your audience?
So there's kind of two different ways that we'll do it. First of all, we'll just do a poll. Some of the posts that we have with the highest engagement are when we do color contests. People are so excited to be involved in the creation of the next product. And so we get incredible engagement. We have kind of 3 tiers of different audiences. So we have our ambassador crew, which is like a really tight group of people who pass through our training and really want to be directly involved with the company. That's about 500 or so people. So we can use that for the smaller tests. Then we've got our final crew, which is a private Facebook group of about, I think, 7,000 people. And then we can kind of test things on a larger scale there. So maybe that's where we've narrowed down some of the information, and then we want to see what this next, tighter group says. And then we can open it up to the wide audience and say, hey, what do you guys think of this? The second way to test is just simple A/B testing in ads. So, you don't need, and it's really inexpensive, is the beauty of it. You can put $100 behind an ad and A/B test with 2 different images, look at your click-through rate. And then, once a winner has been decided, then you can really focus on that image. Beyond that, you can also test copy and start to see what people are really responding to. It depends also on the type of engagement you want. Are you trying to just get clicks? Are you trying to see what's eye-catching? Or are you trying to actually create a conversion? Because sometimes you'll create an image that might get more clicks, but then you won't create the conversion the way you want it. So really focusing in on what you want to test, and then implementing a test to get a proper result.
Now, has there been a time where a customer, I think this is in line with what you're saying too, have there been times where customers have given you feedback and then their actions don't reflect their feedback?
Yeah. So, when I was talking about having the version 1 of the straw with the drying rack, people, when we came out with the version 2 without the drying rack, people were like, wait, I missed the drying rack, even though our reports had said that people weren't using it. So, it's that brings up more questions of, are people just missing it because we're removing it, or was it actually being in use more than we found through tests? I don't really know. But yes, of course, there's tons of times where people are going to say that they're going to do something that they might not actually follow through with. And that's, one hard thing about testing, especially when it comes to the environmental sphere. You can run tests and say, would you pay 50 cents more for an eco-friendly product? And people will say yes. But then you see in action that a lot less people will actually do it. So you always have to keep that in mind when running these tests, if you're asking a specific question like that.
And when it comes to running ads to do these tests, can you do the same thing, or have you done the same thing to determine products to release, or product features, or colors, like things that are related more to product development itself?
No. So in terms of product development, we really are doing these polls and asking people directly what you'd like to see next. We haven't done it for ads because, generally if you're running an ad, you have the product already, or, unless you're doing a pre-sale. In terms of looking at what products to do next, this is where I'm really focusing on because I am the target customer, it's what I want. It's what I really need, and wish existed in order to reduce my own personal, single-use waste. And so I'm really able to look at my behavior and my daily actions and say, what would make my life easier in order to live zero waste? And so that's how I'm basically determining what products are next.
So speaking of the ads then that are more focused around the branding or the messaging and the copy and the photos, would you ever want to optimize an ad towards clicks rather than like conversions or purchases? Like what's the kind of strategy when it comes to the ads? Like what is the ultimate goal for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really depends what your ad is leading to. We recently started working on a blog. And so for there, we're not looking for conversion. We're just trying to get people onto the blog, and find the blog so that they can find another resource for educating themselves around single-use plastic waste. Ultimately, I didn't start this company to sell a bunch of products. I started it to educate people and raise awareness around single-use plastic and promote behavior change. So, yes, we do sell straws, but that's not the purpose of what we're doing. So we certainly do, just create ads to get engagement. Additionally, we want to draw people to our Instagram account. So if you're creating an ad that's for engagement versus conversion, it's going to show to a lot more people that might not be in directly within your audience, but that's how we get people. Oh, what is that? Oh, that looks fun and exciting and interesting. I would like to follow that account. And then, if you check out our Instagram account, it's really dense with information. So we're really trying to go beyond just selling straws and tell people about what is happening in the world, ways to reduce your impact, and also create a community where people can connect with each other and share their own personal journeys.
Yeah, definitely want to touch on the platform that you've created for education in a second. Before we get there, the Ambassador Crew, the Final Crew, the Facebook group. So you said the Ambassador Crew has about 500 people. The Final Crew Facebook group has about 7,000. And I'm guessing the last group is just your entire email list or social media that you put this out to. Does the feedback change from level to level?
Definitely. I mean, from our Ambassador group, we get really detailed feedback. And we're forming relationships with all of these people, very direct. When it comes to the feedback that we get from the larger world, I mean, people who don't know the brand, they don't understand why anyone would even use a straw. So, it's these different kind of levels of engagement and understanding for what the issues are and why we exist and why we do what we do. At the end of the day, if you're answer to reducing single-use plastic waste is to just not use a straw, like that is absolutely 100% the best way to reduce your waste. If you're the type of person that really wants or needs a straw, then here we provide a sustainable alternative.
What about the guidance? Does the guidance change from level to level? Meaning, like, could the ambassador crew members say that they want something that then the larger group it's just not marketable, like they don't want? Like, how do you balance the kind of feedback that you get when it comes to giving you guidance and direction on where to take the company next?
Yeah, it's tough because the ambassadors, they want more swag. They want to be able to really rep the company. And I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to move forward to sustainably rep what we're doing, without just creating a bunch more waste. The apparel industry is the second most polluting industry out there. So I'm not really wanting to go into creating a bunch of shirts and items that we'd have to stock a ton of inventory and then continue to contribute to that industry. So trying to find a balance. It's not saying that I'll never go into apparel, but it's a tough thing to really integrate into your company because there's just a lot of waste in that area, and then a lot of different sizes and colors that everyone wants. But Yeah, I mean, back to the question, I do weight what the ambassadors are saying because they are involved with the brand on a really regular basis. And so if it's something that I'm hearing a lot and I'm hearing it from, over and over from ambassadors, I will definitely take it very seriously. But at the end of the day, the opinion of, any customer is equally weighted with ambassadors. I don't want one person to necessarily feel like their opinion is going to dictate what I do to a higher level. I want to appease our customers, and I also want to do what's right for our company. And so, all of the decisions I make are based along the fact of, is this going to increase awareness around single-use plastic waste? Is this going to make it easier for people to reduce their waste? And, is this going to make it easier for people to share the message? And if it doesn't check one of those boxes, then it's not really a direction that I'm willing to go.
Okay, so speaking of increasing awareness and educating consumers so that the ultimate goal is to change consumer behavior. And you mentioned that the education platform that you've created is a way to do that. And you mentioned to us that you have now found a balance between promotion and communicating, and I guess and educating your audience. What is that balance for you guys?
I would say probably 70-30. If I had to just kind of ballpark a percentage, 70% being education and awareness and 30% promoting the product. I can scan through our Instagram and look at how that's weighted, but you will see that the majority of what we're posting is about the issues and ways for people to reduce their waste. And so, I think it certainly will change. And fluctuates depending on the month. We're entering into holidays, and so it's definitely going to be more product focused. But and Plastic Free July, for example, was entirely issue focused for the entire month. We tried to educate and show people ways to live zero waste. So it fluctuates, but overall, I would probably say about 70-30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like this was something that you had to work to get better at. Were there things that you might have done wrong when you first started this out in terms of balance between the communications/education and the promotion side?
I mean, if it was up to me, it would be 99% education and 1% product. So I think that my team is always pushing me to keep that balance and to ensure that we aren't a nonprofit. We're not just there to educate. We still need to sell straws in order to pay the bills. So I think that as time has gone on, I've seen where that balance needs to lie, and the team also puts in their opinions. And so it really just has to do with testing. Where do people respond? And the thing is, when we send out emails that are entirely educationally focused, they still create a spike in sales.
Yeah. So one thing that you wanted to get, I guess, kind of clear and across to a lot of entrepreneurs is that if you have an idea that you're passionate about and a problem that you want to solve, like you've discovered, it's possible to follow your passion and create a company with a mission that aligns with those values. So what's the key advice that you give to someone out there that is pursuing a business based on a passion for a cause?
I would say, put everything you have into it. Being an entrepreneur is really difficult, and you have to be willing to make a lot of sacrifices. So, I have no social life, and I work all the time, and that's just my life, and it's great, and I love it. And, I do make sure to dedicate an hour a day to physical activity because that's super important for just keeping healthy. But, first of all, just be ready to make those sacrifices. Second of all, find your voice and target your marketing towards a very specific group of people. If you try and make it something that everyone will resonate with, it dilutes the message and it makes it meaningless. So, hone in on your voice and hone in on the kind of messaging and branding you want to see. And then test it. Go out there and see, is this something the world responds to? I get a lot of messages from people that are starting Kickstarters and really excited. And I was recently chatting with a company, they're so sure they're going to make $1 million at the Kickstarter. Well, they launched and it was crickets. So it's like, make sure that behind what you're doing it for the right reasons. And I was never working on this project to make money. It was never in even like my sight at all. The fact that the company is doing well is such an added bonus and so exciting, but it was never the driving factor. So if money is your driving factor, working on a company with a mission is, to solve a problem may not be the right path. And not to say that that's wrong. If that's your mission, that's fine. But it doesn't really align with creating a company with a mission, because the mission has to be the most important thing, and nothing can come in the way of it. So, there's been investors that I haven't brought on board because they don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. On Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary called us a mission with a product as an insult. And I was like, yeah, we are. Like, that's why we're doing what we're doing. So, making sure to surround yourself with people that get it, and never diluting your message for people that don't.
Amazing. So FinalStraw.com is a website. What would you say needs to happen for you and for the company this year for you to consider this year a success?
Well, I'm busting my butt to get Final Fork launched this winter. And so really hoping that's going to happen. But I'm not going to launch it until it's really perfect. So, we'll see. I get the new round of prototypes in tomorrow. So I'll be able to see. But honestly, this year has already been a success. We've, engaged with so many people. We launched in REI, all stores, which is such a dream come true. When I first started working on this project, I went to REI and just like, big doe eyes walking around like, what if one day? And it's crazy because like, a year and a half later, here it is. We're in all REI stores. So it's a huge success. And, we're just really trying to build out more of our programs, getting more ambassadors on so that they can spread the mission and building out the team. So it's been a success, and really excited for, holidays, which are always crazy, and FinalStraw is kind of this ultimate stocking stuffer. So excited to see, more people gifting this and getting more people on board with, raising awareness around ways to reduce single-use plastic.
Awesome. Again, FinalStraw.com. Sign up for the email list to hear more about those upcoming awesome sounding products. And thank you so much for your time, Emma.
Yeah, thanks, Felix. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.